You are listening to Aim Higher, a Catholic podcast designed to instruct and to encourage the daily practice of our faith.
Pax et bonum, peace and good to you all. Welcome to another episode of the Aim Higher podcast. I'm Sister Catherine, and there drinking his coffee is
Father Anthony, but actually it's
not
ginseng tea.
I was gonna say, it might not be coffee just
It's
because the
ginseng.
mug.
It's ginseng. The mug was a red herring.
I see. Anyway, so they're drinking his tea is Father Anthony. Hello, Father.
Hello, sister. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm still busy. I mean, this past year has brought on a lot of changes for us. And then there's more changes. So it's just,
and then more changes.
Right. It's just
it's all good.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, well, yeah. One of the changes turned out to be, it's always good. You know, God works in mysterious ways, and he also works in ways that are not so mysterious. It's when he hits you with the verbal 2x4, getting you back into gear. So it's it's all good, and we're expanding. I know what we're trying to do and grow with the channel, and then with the podcast. And
speaking of the channel, I don't know if you noticed, but we're up to 155 subscribers.
Last time I saw it was 154.
Oh, last time I saw it was 150. So
yeah.
So yay!
Yay.
We're getting there. It's really not about the numbers per se.
Yeah, it isn't about the numbers, but what you're happy is that it's touching people. You know, people are reacting to it positively for the most part, I'd say, and not that surprising when I saw that our last episode that you and I did together really had a lot of views. I mean, for us.
Right. We're not. If we get over 100, we're excited.
If we get 100 views, it's like, yep, that's good.
That's a winner. Yeah.
But the more and more you're out there, how long you're out, the more people see it, and so you build gradually.
Right.
If we had comedic content, silly stuff, you have a better chance of a lot of people seeing it. Like if we were putting on videos of the dog doing something funny, we don't none of us have a dog, but if you did something, yeah, you might get 1.5 million views in a week. But everyone loves videos of dogs and cats and birds for some reason. But we don't have such things. Although it seems kind of fitting if we had an animal on at some degree, because Franciscan. But it's neither here nor there.
If I was sitting in another room, we could see some fish. But
there you go. Well, maybe just like get a fish bowl and just put one behind you.
That'd be so sad. That'd be such a sad fish.
By himself, all by his own self.
Exactly. That's just wrong.
But it was our episode on angels, which didn't really surprise me, and it got some response on it, and I thought it was an interesting topic. It's not one that we delve too much into. We kind of keep it very practical every day. Although, of course, when you speak of angels, they are around us each and every day, and it is the experiences we have with them are practical in a sense that they're always there to help us, to steer us to make a good mixture, but to steer us in the right direction, especially in those times of temptation. You have to remember, while you may have the devil tempting you on one end, you do have your guardian angel encouraging you on the other, encouraging you to virtue. This is why you have the age-old thing of the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other shoulder talking to you. But there's a thing to keep in mind. They're not talking for you. They're talking to you. You're still the one who is making the decision. You're deciding which one you're going to listen to. So you can't say the devil made me do it. Yeah, and that's the thing. It just I'm getting off, but it reminds me of St. Augustine when why he loved Manichaeanism, because it proposed the false dogma. I'm not dogma is even the word, but teaching that that the world is made up of you have two principles, a supreme good and a supreme evil. Everything in the material world is made up of the supreme evil. Everything is spiritual is the supreme good. Now, us human beings, we're made up of both. So if we do something evil, no matter what it is, it's not attributed to us. It's just part of, it's excused. It's just part of the supreme evil that is a consequence of our being partly material. So St. Augustine's like, hey, so if I do something wrong, that's okay, because I just say it's the supreme evil. I can't control it. He said, but when he came to his spiritual senses and writing in his confessions, he said, but while I excused myself for my sin, on the other hand, when I performed virtue, I took all the credit. When I did something good, I took all the credit. I didn't say, well, it wasn't me. It was the supreme good, not me. But he didn't do that. And that was one of the things that led him to seeing the inconsistencies in the teachings. So,
isn't that interesting though, how we are quick to deflect when we make a wrong choice, and we're very quick to blame someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but if you want to take credit,
really.
And it's challenging because you also don't want that false humility, I mean, well, it would be false humility if you honestly do attribute to the good is by God. This is, a gift from God. But if you're going to be like, oh, well, it wasn't much, or you try to still make it about you, even though you make it seem like you're making it about other people, it's just, you're still trying to make yourself look better. So it's just very interesting.
It's something to be aware of with ourselves and in our everyday life when we try to practice humility.
Right. Well, especially when you're inclined to be self-deprecating, which I've been working on quite a bit. So not to be it, to get over it.
Well, yeah, I do that myself. Of course, I think I can say with a certain amount of honesty here that when I do it, I'm doing it because I find it funny.
Also true. Yeah.
It makes me laugh. But you also have to keep in mind how other people are going to take it. So it's like telling a joke. It depends who your audience is, whether they're going to find it funny or not. And your self-deprecation could be if other people are on the joke, they get it. Other people might think, oh, some false humility there. And then they judge you. Oh, not supposed to worry about what other people think. That's true to a point. It doesn't mean that we get to be absolute horrible people around and say, well, it doesn't matter. I don't care. Well, we're supposed to care. We're supposed to love thy neighbor as you love yourself. You're supposed to be a quality person.
There you go.
Really, you're supposed to be a quality person. You're supposed to have a standard. And that's what we look to help in this program, to reach a standard. We're all looking at it. I mean, we're all looking at it. We're all aspiring to it. We're all practicing our faith. It's called practicing our faith for a reason. None of us have it mastered. And you can go to the most perfect saint. You can go to our Father, St. Francis of Assisi, on his deathbed, just about to enter into eternal life. Oh, did you figure it out? No. He would say, no. And to quote from the Last Testament, as he said, we have only begun to serve God. We've only just begun. After all that he did, establishing 3 religious orders, separating himself from the world, traveling to distant lands to convert the infidels, everything that he did. It says we've only just begun. We've only scratched the surface. And that's how we always have to look at it.
And I'm sorry, I'm just laughing because you say we've only just begun. Of course, I've got the
To
Carpenters.
live.
The Carpenters in my
We've
head
only
now.
just begun to live, folks.
Mhm.
So,
Well, isn't that true? And every day we have to draw experience from and just strive to do better and aim higher. So, and with that, I guess, no, it's not a Deo Gratias. We just started.
Deo Gracias. Goodbye. This is a
Okay.
short one.
Well,
Much to our
everybody wants.
chagrin.
Yes.
Um,
Anyway, so we do have a topic,
We do.
which, which the episode is titled as such. So we are going to finally wrap up the 6 laws of the church. We've been wanting to do this, probably for the last month at least.
Yeah, we've been trying to wrap it up. Yeah.
We had a couple of things just thrown at us that we couldn't make it happen.
No, that's why there have been a lot of bonus episodes here and there because it's just getting together.
Yes.
It's like been a while since, like I mentioned it in the last one. It's like, wow, it's like so long since I've seen you.
Mm-hmm.
We've done
Really talked. It's funny because I keep thinking summer awards me more time to do stuff, and it doesn't. And when I mean stuff, I'm like going outside, working outside. That's not the case. That's usually when we're getting the calendar done and now the planner and then just everything. So I keep thinking there's downtime because we don't have the serif or Under Her Mantle, but
it's not that much time because you got to do all the preparatory work for the for the fall. You gotta
right.
get everything.
And it's the middle of October, and I'm not sure how that happened. I mean,
well, you see, time works in a linear from cause to effect. And the dates work that way. Sure, it's all subjective, but
so anyway, we are going to wrap up this series.
And what is that 6th law of the church, sister?
To observe the laws of the church concerning marriage, which sounded very weird to say, but
it did. Well, you're supposed to have like the first 5 laws preceding it. So to say it on its own, it sounds kind of weird.
It did. So, yep, to observe the laws of the church concerning marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And
very important.
I definitely have my Catholic faith open, and if you want to know where you can find where they discuss it, it is lesson 166, provided that your book matches the one I have.
Mine does.
So, anyway, with that, Father, I think you ought to lead us in this because I don't really know.
Okay. Well, first off, let's just, we're going to go back a little bit. We're going to use my Catholic faith as our touchstone here. But what is the sacrament of matrimony? Because that's what we're discussing here. Matrimony is the sacrament by which a baptized man and a baptized woman bind themselves for life in a lawful marriage and receive the grace to discharge their duties. So marriage is a sacrament, meaning that it is an outward sign instituted by Christ and it gives grace. Now, we know with the sacraments is that it gives the grace, it gives the type of grace that is referenced in the sacrament itself. So it gives the grace to fulfill the vocation of the married state. And those who have been married for years and have children, I think definitely need grace to carry on this vocation because it's not an easy one. Though there are many great joys, but it's not an easy one. But there is nothing worth having in life that comes easy. Now, it's also a contract. We say it's a contract. It's an agreement between the two parties to enter into this union. And it is a union. One thing that it does not say here is that it lasts for life. So it's binding for the remainder of your life. As long as one of the two parties is still alive, as long as they're both still alive, as long as one of them's still alive, you're married. What? Father, that's different. No. Sorry. As long as you're both alive, you're married. if one of you passes away, the remaining party is now free to remarry if they so choose. So it lasts until death, also with the purpose of raising children. That is the primary purpose of the married state. The secondary purpose is for your own spiritual good and to spiritually aid one another in the achievement of your self-sanctification. Sister, you're...
Well, it's just I find that interesting that would be second. Just because
because it's kind of like it might go without saying.
Sure. I guess so.
Because the primary, because you connect it with the marital act, which is the begetting of children. And that's what makes it the primary. And to ensure the proper upbringing of the child, taking care of their physical needs, their educational needs, their social needs, their religious needs. Basically, building a person with good Christian character. And, because that's the primary focus. And it goes along with that you are working out your own salvation with each other, helping, aiding one another while you are raising your children. So it's secondary in a sense, in a sense that, well, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but it's just, no, that's okay. It's just one of the conditions for a marriage is that you both have to intend to have children. Now, I'm not talking about elderly couples getting married. That's a different story. It's not that they're saying, oh, we would never want to have children. They can't physically have children, but they have the intention of contracting this union with each other for the remainder of their lives. But generally speaking, we're talking about a young man, a young woman, and this has to be their main intention. If they have in their minds, we're never going to have children, there's a serious question of whether or not you're married. Because if you say, no, we're just off the table, and we have no intention.
And that gets kind of murky because you can't just all of a sudden, you've been married for a few months and I was like, yeah, we never wanted children. It
is quite an investigation.
Yes.
And that's, I said, that opens up like another door here.
Yes.
But we might get into that. We might not. I don't really want to talk about annulments and divorces and such.
No.
Although that does kind of go part and parcel a little bit here, but that's okay. But when we say that, when we say instituted by Christ, when did Christ institute the sacrament? Well, matrimony is as old as mankind. Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. God brought man and woman together, and he told them, along with all the creatures of the earth, to be fruitful and multiply. And for various reasons, God permitted polygamy. That was a number of the patriarchs were allowed to have multiple wives, but that was not the original intention of God. It was a concession. Our Lord Jesus Christ returned it to its sacred roots. Monogamy, man and woman, because that reflects the love that God has in himself. We talk about the Trinity, the Father and the Son, and then you producing the love between the Father and the Son. The Holy Ghost proceeds just as a child proceeds from the love of the man and the woman. That's the ideal. And that can get disrupted if that love is divided. The love that you have for your spouse is a very personal, a singular type of love. You don't have that same love for anyone else. You're not supposed to. This is the person whom you are going to grow with, that you're going to suffer with. This is the person you're going to laugh with. This is the person who is really should be your best friend. And that's what I've said to people. I said, your spouse should be your best friend. And that takes it out of what some can, depending if it's a strained marriage, feel like you're just going through a duty. It's just your duty. If it's a friendship, if you genuinely enjoy each other, and it goes beyond just the romance that's really strong usually in the beginning, but a romance, I'm not talking about Valentine's Day. I'm talking about actually growing with each other and, showing the affection for one another. That is perfected as in your faith. It's become something even stronger. So it's very important. This is a very important sacrament, which that and holy orders have to do very much with the lifeblood of the church, where the man and the woman in matrimony and marriage bring forth, or I will put it this way, beget more children for the kingdom of heaven. It is through the priesthood that they are baptized and sanctified. So in order to bring this saint about. So it's very important. So it's really parents to understand your role, the spiritual role that you have with your children. It's a wonderful obligation. And it's one that you really should, I'm not saying you take seriously. I'm not saying you don't take it seriously. I'm saying just to really take a moment to realize, I have a responsibility for this child. I can help see them develop and grow closer and closer to God, because this is what I should want for myself. I want that for my child. So here's where you can, those joys. Yes, you're going to joy. Yes, they graduate. That's a big thing. You go to a concert, you're proud of them. Sports, they do this, they do good at work. They do this. There's so many opportunities you're going to have to be proud of your children, to be happy for your children. But to see them grow in love of God, there's nothing that will compare to that. And if they see you love God,
yeah,
that is huge.
And I think it's important to note that you may not see the fruits of your child noticing your love for God until way later. I mean, I could say that for myself. I was actually contemplating similarly on this earlier today, because I was busy cleaning, doing some fall cleaning, some more heavy duty stuff. And it just how much I appreciate the cleanliness. I like a clean toilet as much as the next one, that's not just a one-time cleaning thing, but that was just, I don't mind doing these things because they're important. But if you would have asked me 20, 30 years ago, I probably did not clean the toilet. But I saw my parents put time and energy into.
Okay. I'm sorry, sister. I was like, okay, where is this going?
Yes, but I saw my parents put time and energy, or like the clean as you go, which I know is not everybody's, and I'm not saying that if you don't clean as you go that your method of cleaning is wrong, but I do appreciate that was something I saw my parents do because I like it. I like the order of it, but you would never have gotten me to even tell you I saw them doing those things or appreciate those things 20, 30 years ago. You would never have gotten that out of me. It's good. That's what's hard, is realizing the investment you're going to make in your children is you're not going to see the return for many years. You might get glimmers of it. You might get like a little bonus here and there just to kind of keep you keep you on track, knowing that you are doing the right thing. Because I think that's hard for parents, that they wonder, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing all that I can? As we've talked about a lot, if you are putting your faith, making it important to you, it will truly make a difference. It's just sadly, you're just not going to see
Gonna have an
that.
impact.
Yeah, but it
I mean,
will.
you might, but you're right.
I hated doing dishes, and I do dishes all the time now, and I don't mind it because
Yeah.
I appreciate the cleanliness, the order. But again,
Clean as especially when you're cooking.
oh
Clean
yes,
as you're cooking dinner.
right,
And
right,
not everyone learns those lessons. And I was in the
right.
seminary. Father Joseph's like, "Why are you doing the dishes as you're cooking?" I was like, "Well, so I don't have to do them after we eat."
Yep, yep.
And it just keeps things clean. And it's just that's how I have to do it.
Right. And you could tell a child, if you just get it done now, you don't have to worry about it. It's so much easier. And the thing is, you're going to say that a lot. And because your kid's not going to believe you. It's like the time you spent whining about this, you could have been done already. It doesn't matter. The kid is not going to
Yeah. Yeah.
admit that, even when it's just it's when you're well into adulthood, like, yeah, my parents were right.
And children are going to find out they're probably a lot more like their parents than they would ever want to admit.
Right. Right. But and
You
that's
gotta,
and that's the thing with same thing with the spiritual life. I mean,
yes.
we knew that the faith was very important to our dad. I mean, I could see that. It probably helped that he was choir director. He was very involved, but I didn't really appreciate all the sacrifices that our parents made
Mm-hmm.
to give us the faith. So just, I guess, as a word of encouragement to parents who are in the throes of like, my child's fighting me, my child, is not wanting to do anything with their catechism, doesn't want to remember anything, doesn't want to do the work, that first of all, you just have to be consistent. You might have to step it up in your prayer life a little bit extra. You might, but eventually, knowing that you stayed true to your convictions will make a difference. Because if you start bending and conceding to stuff, the kids are like, well, it's not important to you then. Why do I have to do this if you don't? Why do I have to pray and you don't? Why are you telling me I need to read this book about a saint when I don't see you read? And I realize that kids should not be talking that way to their parents if they are, but you also don't want to be a hypocrite.
Also, they might not say it, but they probably will be thinking it.
Right.
So
And that's natural. So
it's an encouragement thing,
yeah.
just looking to encourage on, and just if you love God, your children will see that, and that's going to have an impression upon them. And it might be a St. Augustine situation where you don't see it until they are well into an adulthood, like St. Monica, seeing his conversion when he was 30 years old. You might experience that, but as long as your children understand its importance in your life, that's going to have an effect.
Mm-hmm.
And your prayer is so important. It reminds me of what St. Ambrose said to St. Monica when she was opening up her heart to this holy bishop. And he said, I can't believe that a mother who shed so many tears would have her prayers go unanswered. So think about that. And I will say, I can't believe a parent who put so much effort in their love of God would not have their prayers answered in one way or another. So with this little bit of encouragement, let's get back to what the actual topic is, the laws of the church concerning marriage.
Right. But you did bring up the primary purpose of marriage was children. So I think it kind of did fit.
Well, it fit, but it's just, there's so much here. I mean, this technically could be a whole, we could do like several episodes just on marriage itself. I don't think we want to do that. But so, okay. I think the way to put it, the way to approach this, I think, is to put ourselves in the place of the young man and the young woman looking to get married. Because the laws of the church concerning marriage don't really affect us until we get to that point. We don't really have to think about what is it I need to do? How do I have to go about this? It's you're gonna say something.
Well, it's just you brought up like at what point do parents bring up certain particulars of the sacrament
Okay. Yeah.
to their children? Because I mean, I know that in high school we had the Quest for Happiness. Now, I never got through all 4 books, so I don't know if it really touches too much on that.
Probably does.
But I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, but if your child is probably junior, senior in high school, you probably do need to pull out your Catholic faith and kind of go over those type of things. Because how many kids, you kind of wonder, like how many of them actually really know anything concerning this? And then they go down a path that's kind of murky and troublesome.
Well, and let's say they look to get married, and they're kind of trying to figure things out for themselves, and they find themselves asking questions after the fact.
Yes.
So if you at least give them an idea, at least they can know, all right, there's something to this. I have to go talk to Father. I have to go, make arrangements and make sure that everything is above board on this marriage. Now, what things could be an issue? First off, you have to make our first duty in our marriage, make sure the person we're intending to marry, we are capable of marrying them, that we can marry them. It's lawful for us to marry them. Obviously, person of the same gender as you, nope, sorry, marriage is a man and a woman. Okay. Does it matter does age and race matter? Not particularly. Now, the law of the church for race, not at all, but for age, the church put down 16 years for a boy, 14 years for a girl. Now that's like the minimal. The church doesn't like go around and go to kids and 16-year-olds and say, get married, get married. No, I'm not even going to go into the situations in which you would have this. Well, usually I guess it would be like royal weddings and stuff. You often see that more than any other scenario. Marriage out of wedlock type, not child out of wedlock situation, maybe. But anyway, that's like the minimal. But usually you're over 18, you're in your 20s, you are considered a legal adult, and you are making an adult decision to enter into this contract with this person. Now, what sort of things do you have to look for? Obviously, ideally, you'd want to have a fellow Catholic. It's difficult in this world today to find a practicing Catholic, devout Catholic, and marry them. It's hard. But that's ideally what you would want. The person has to be baptized. But let's go through this way. Let's go do it this way. Like, what is the situation where there'll be no question about the person you're marrying? Everything would be a go. No one would have to ask really anything other than, Father, is this date good for the wedding?
Yeah. I was like, don't pick your venue and all that stuff and set up invitations unless you talk to the priest first.
That's happened.
Because, well, also
that's happened.
And part of the reason why, you're not the priest. we're small in number, there's things going on. You need to, you might not be available, but also you have to take classes before you go into matrimony, and letting the priest know last minute, it's actually very disrespectful.
So
So
Father, what things do we need to do? Well, we have to go through the what are called pre-Cana, the marriage feast of Cana, the pre-Cana classes. Oh, so okay, so we're getting married in 2 weeks. It's like,
no, you're not.
Like usually it's like, you need about 5 or 6 weeks. You meeting once a week in a class. Yeah, you can adjust it with each situation, but anyway, that's actually like really the only big thing there.
Right.
Let's just say you have two people, both Catholic. They neither one are married. They're free. They're entering into this marriage, not being coerced. It's a free will. They go through the marriage classes. That's all free and clear. There'd be no question of whether or not it's a valid marriage. It's no question of is it licit? It's all good. There's no complications. And the law that you have to observe in this is following the instructions of the priest, before the marriage and then even afterwards. So it's not, this is the kind of the dream scenario.
Yeah, but I think because what happens is we almost feel like we don't need to talk about these things to our children until like they're ready to get married. But like I said, I think this topic should be covered along with other possible vocations. Junior, senior year. I mean, sure, not a lot of people are getting married out of high school. I mean, and there's a lot of good reasons why not. But you need to make sure you know what's expected. And make sure your children aren't blindsided. I mean, because we take so much for granted. You would think, oh, well, what do you mean I can't get married in a Protestant ceremony?
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't know that means you didn't study.
Yeah, and the thing
and
is,
that's a grave offense too.
And as I said before, usually when we don't have it doesn't affect us right now. We study it, we read it. It's like, okay, I get it. All right, this is what the church teaches. Great, and either you forgot it or it's stored way back there.
Right.
But now it's something that is like, okay, I'm looking to get married.
Right.
Let's just put ourselves as a young man for a moment, and you're looking to, propose to your intended bride, your girlfriend. And if you're taking this seriously, you really should look at, okay, now, am I checking all the boxes that the church needs me to check? Right. Am I doing everything correctly? And who are who's the one to ask, or the individuals to ask first? Your mom and your dad. I've gone to young people before. I say, talk to your mom and your dad about this stuff. They've experienced it. They might have questions. For them might have been a while, but don't shirk off what your mom and dad know. Listen to them. I know when we become 18, we know everything. But
no, they know that about 13. Starting at 11, 12, 13, really? They know everything.
Oh, then I'm a late bloomer. But it's amazing that absolute knowledge starts to fade instantly. The more experience you get, the less you know. But seriously, all joking aside, you go talk to them. Say, I'm looking to marry, and a good parent say, okay, well, you got to make sure you do this, this, this. Don't shirk it off and say you're ruining the romance. It's like there's going to be plenty of that, okay?
And I can understand maybe the hesitancy on the parents' part because, you say, well, you don't want me to marry this person. You don't like this person. I mean, I do think it does matter what your family thinks of your intended.
That's true. Not a law of the church, but
no, but I think it practical. Is important. I mean, you're going to leave your parents for your new family. Of course, that's the idea, but I just think it is critical to consider, and it's not going to always be pleasant. But anyway, as you were bringing up,
Mhm.
like you said, if you are seeing someone and it's serious and you like to marry this person, yes, talking to your parents. And and let's say you feel like you don't know how to approach your parents, well, then talk to your priest.
I just a few weeks just had a young girl come to me, Father, I got some news. I was like, okay, don't make me wait too long because my mind's start thinking about what you're about to spring on me. Okay, get married. Oh, he finally proposed. Fantastic. We had the conversation of what to do, what we need to do, and right away, I was like, I like that. That's good. So, and that the parents' influence was a major factor in that.
Yeah.
So I've seen it with my own eyes.
Right. I mean, I'm definitely advocating more and more to people, talk to your priest. If you're unsure about anything, just talk to your priest. What are you so afraid of? I mean, he's not going to be judging you, might be judging the situation, but it's about helping you.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
and we tend to blow things out of proportion in our own mind, but we kind of find out when you actually sit down and talk to someone who has studied, knows their stuff, you feel better. It just from my own personal experience, when I finally sat down and talked to people about various topics of, talking to the priest about various topics, I felt much better. And that's how you're going to grow. So just don't be afraid, whatever it is. I mean,
I can't make the statement that every priest is going to be easy to talk to. Some priests are not easy to talk to. I hear those stories. I've heard it from more than one person. They weren't all together in a room edging each other on with a story. But tell of certain priests, like you go to the confessional and you hear them say, "You said what?" To somebody in there, and I'm going to say those are anomalies to the priesthood. A man who takes his vocation seriously, understands the hardships, understands the awkwardness that people have to go through. And our job is to help make it as easy as possible, not to make it difficult, but also to be honest with you and to tell you like it is. And sometimes just telling a person like it is, just telling them what the church teaches on this or this situation might affect that person's faith. One example that's really connected to this that you see a lot. You can have a married couple, and one of them commits adultery. They cheat, and the person who cheats, have a divorce or whatever, and the one who is the innocent comes out and says, "Well, I want to remarry," and you say, "You can't. You are married." I'm sorry. You were both baptized. You all the criteria. There's no grounds for an annulment. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And you have a person who say, "Well, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away." When you have those who might go out and say, "You know what? Then forget it."
Yeah.
And forget it. I said, "This is not fair. I didn't do anything. Why am I getting punished?" That it's not about punishment. It's about you went into a contract with this person. They broke it. And apparently it's not repairable. There are situations that you should try to make it work, especially if there are children involved, to move past it. But it's to say it's that situation where it can't be resolved. And those are situations where, for the active Catholic Party, where a bishop can allow a separation, not a divorce, but a separation between the two, where you'd go through basically it would be like a civil divorce. You separate your goods, but that's all about the state.
Yeah,
that's all about the
you
state.
Still can't marry again. It's just
in the church itself, but you still need the bishop's okay. Now, but those who will accept that, those who won't, and they seem it's unfair and they leave the church. Why am I being punished? You're not being punished. You are actually the one who can, and this sounds weird to some people, who can benefit from this spiritually with your suffering and offering this up, your situation. You can actually now draw yourself closer to God as long as you bear it patiently. It's not easy. I've
No.
seen it. It's
Right.
not easy, but you have to focus on the positive, the spiritual realities. And the spiritual reality is there is one true church. You are a part of that church. To go anywhere else, you're outside of the church, and you're setting yourself up for damnation if you do not rectify it. Now, I'm not saying everyone in that situation is damned. I'm just saying that's the general principle. But a person who apostatizes from the church, apostasy, unrepentant, that's damnation, that you will be damned. People don't like hearing it put that way, but like I said before, a priest is going to say it as nicely as he can, but sometimes he just has to lay it out to you. I can give you the general principles. It's one of the reasons why when you counsel people spiritually, I say, I can give you the general principles. I can lay it all out for you, which is normally what you do if you're giving a sermon on moral theology. But then you can have those circumstances that can alter and change the situation a little bit. It doesn't make it go a 180, but it may affect one thing or another. And that's the thing. The priest asks questions, looks into it. So for this situation, you don't want to feel as though you're being wronged by the church. You're wronged by your spouse. But holding on to the faith, despite of that, quite blessed, quite a bevy of blessings available for that soul. Sorry, sister, I went on a bit of a rant there.
No, that's really a rant.
No.
I thought it was educational.
Oh, okay. Educational rant.
Yeah, an educational rant.
Well, now, what would prevent you from marrying a person? Now, let's go right off the line and say, like, what is the church law? You cannot marry someone who is in your direct bloodline. Okay? This is against church law. I'm not concerned. People are going to bring up, what about Adam and Eve and their kids? Obviously, that was a different situation. You kind of look at it and says, yeah, but that was before the flood. That was before Noah. That was a different situation. Okay? I'm not getting into that. That's a topic for another time. Also because I do not have my Haydock Bible to give you what the fathers of the church say on that. So I'm gonna leave that alone. But not generally speaking, as the church in canon law, because this all comes from canon law. We've said before with the 6 laws of the church, these are the 6 laws that apply to everybody, not just a particular group. So this law, okay, this law comes in a place that the church says you can't be in the direct bloodline. So what do I mean by that? A young man cannot marry his grandmother. He cannot marry his mother. A young woman cannot marry her son. You cannot marry your brother, your sister, anything in a direct bloodline. All right. And then that can spread, and then it branches out. There have been cases where a man could marry his niece, or a woman could marry her nephew. It's really odd, weird, but they're not in the direct bloodline, but that's pretty close. Then you have degrees of there's the term. They have actually the terms here. And actually, if I go back here to the laws of the church, the impediments of marriage, it's the detriments. The close affinity. Yep. So there was a word I was looking for. Blood relationship, which is consanguinity. So it depends how close the person is. I believe if I know that off the top of my head, if a person that you are third cousins, then you don't need any dispensation.
Okay.
So what am I saying?
I think that's what I knew when I was a kid.
So first cousins could marry, but you need what is called a dispensation. That means the church is allowing a relaxation of the law for this instance, for this situation. Okay, that in some ways, especially we're talking about both of them are Catholic, is permissible. And I believe permissible. Of course it is. The church wouldn't allow it if it wasn't permissible. But I believe with first cousins, actually I think it's to the fourth. Well, anyway, looking at the chart here, in order to contract a marriage, you would have to get a permission from Rome, not from your local ordinary. So it's something that's very rare. Doesn't really happen. And I've had this conversation with people, and they're just kind of always going like, oh.
Well, I mean, you think about like who your first cousins are. It's like there's no way I would even.
But the relationships of cousins, I mean, generations look at these things differently, and I know some people who have married their first cousins, and it is what it is, just how it all worked out, and just kind of leave it at that. But as far as church law goes, you just need the proper dispensation, the proper permission. And in investigating, they'll go through, the reasons for the marriage and, anyway, then you get into dispensations for if you want to marry a non-Catholic. You need to get dispensation. You can't just think that I was a person who is a Lutheran, Presbyterian, Baptist, or even, well, we'll have to stick with that. And stick with people who are, we would say, are baptized. Of course, I mentioned Baptist, and they don't have the correct form. So if I stick with Presbyterian and Lutheran, I'm pretty safe that they use the proper form there. So they would be baptized. Then you would need a dispensation for mixed marriage. As a rule, and the church, it puts in these words, the church forbids mixed marriages. But the word forbid is not, as what's the word I was looking for? It's not as final as it sounds. She does allow in circumstances and the days that we live in now.
I was gonna say it's almost
mixed marriages.
And I know that they get like such a frowned upon from some people in the Catholic faith, but I've taken the position that where we are in the world today, how many people are being brought into this world without any faith, that this is a chance to convert them. And it's going to take a long time.
It is.
But I hold out hope because I know a lot of people in mixed marriages,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want them to feel like, and I'm not saying people have ever actually voiced this, but they might have been tempted to think it, whenever a person in a mixed marriage might be having difficulties, the Papa thought, I was like, well, what do you expect? You're in a mixed marriage, as if two Catholics have a perfect marriage. It's just like, you just
Yeah.
don't look at it as like, well, of course you're having problems. You married a non-Catholic. That's not helpful,
If
first of all, and not
it,
true.
if you married someone who was a baptized Catholic, but they weren't practicing their faith and they lived practically like a pagan, they didn't go to church on Sunday, and there are a lot of what's that called? What's that term? That there are uh, uh there's a term that some people use where people just go to weddings, church, Christmas and Easter.
Oh, Creasters?
Creasters,
Christmas and Easter
Christmas and
Catholics?
Easter Catholics. You might have that. Um, and they're not involved and they don't pray. It's it's kind of like you were in a mixed marriage anyway. It's
Right.
just so how important your faith is.
Well, I feel like we're just so quick to judge that when, I mean, I do know many marriages that struggle, because
Mm-hmm.
every marriage has its difficulties, but just to kind
Mm-hmm.
of just dismiss their difficulties, like, well, you're in a mixed marriage. What did you expect? And the thing is, as we talked about, the reality is to find someone who is a Catholic, because it's not just like, oh, hey, you're Catholic and I'm Catholic, we're about the same age, let's get married. That's stupid. I'm sorry.
Well,
That's stupid
it's not.
because it's
Yeah.
it's impractical, because it should be a primary focus. God should be the center of this union, but you also want to be attracted to that person. You want to have the same goals, which
Yeah.
first God, um
There has to
but
be other compatible points of compatibility other than just we have the same faith.
right, right. Trying to like do this whole mix or matchmaking among our circles, which as far as I know has never worked out. So
I don't know of a
um
situation where it did.
right. So I see a lot of hope in mixed marriages. I have to believe that if the spouse who is faithful to their faith and remains that way, does everything they can, in time is going to there's I just can't see how their spouse can just continue to just dismiss it and ignore it. And unfortunately, it's going to take time. I wish like there was a formula to go, if you do this and that, boom, they're going to convert. It's not that simple. I mean, we're constantly working on our own, I wouldn't say our own conversion,
Mm-hmm.
but our own spirituality. We know what kind
Mm-hmm.
of difficulties we go into, but because so many people are being brought up as a godless society, God brought you to this person, and this person was, God had something to do with it. And so you're in a mixed marriage. Be sure you're praying for your spouse. I mean, that is part of the conditions.
And
Um,
that's really led right into the point I was going to make. Um, Before that, just want to talk about if the person you're looking to marry was not baptized, then you would need another kind of dispensation from the bishop, which is called disparity of cult. All right. So you have to make sure the situation is explained clearly to the pastor, and so he can relay it to his ordinary, and they can give the proper permissions. If permission is granted, it can be refused in certain situations, because if the priest were to meet with the couple and he said, this is not going to work, and you try to kind of plead with the person, let them know it's not going to work. How often that happens, I have not encountered it, but I'm just saying it's a possibility. And are you going to accept the judgment of the church on a marriage? That's a question, but let's move on forward. You meant now with a mixed marriage or the disparity of cult, there's certain conditions that have to be followed. And like you mentioned one of them, that of the Catholic party, you have to agree that you are going to work towards the conversion of your non-Catholic partner. Now, how do you do that? We've talked about it already. It's practicing your faith, living your faith, and you're demonstrating how important it is to you. You go back to St. Monica, and St. Monica, she had a certain power over her husband, Patricius, in that, yeah, he was not a great man. He was an adulterer. She knew it. She suffered it. Not telling every woman who might be in a situation to suffer it. That's,
case by case.
Again, case by case. But what I'm saying is the patience we should all look to practice, and the influence in your demeanor that it has on your spouse is a very powerful thing. Very much like you talk about, especially with the man and the woman. The man is the head, the woman is the heart, and the heart influences the head. So there's a lot you can do. Actual prayer, making the actual intention regularly, daily even, but your example. And again, it's just like if you're dealing with your children, isn't it? That if your children don't see you caring about the faith, then why would your spouse, your non-Catholic spouse?
Right.
So it's apparently not important, but you have to promise that you're going to work to it. And you should take that promise very seriously. Now, your non-Catholic, not a Catholic party, they have to promise two things. One, they will not interfere with your practice of the faith. They will not do anything to dissuade you, anything to interrupt it. Trying to think of another adjective, but it's not happening. But also, the children must be raised Catholic, must be baptized and raised Catholic. So it can't be, and if I may make a suggestion, if you find yourself in a situation, person you fall in love with, plan to marry, it's not a Catholic. You want to kind of be sure that's not someone who is very active in their religion. You'd kind of want to get someone who is kind of indifferent in that. They believe in God. They understand that, good morals, but if you have someone that you have to battle back and forth, they may say on there that they promise this, but when it comes to
living out those promises,
living it out. Thank you.
Well, because how often you think, oh yeah, you basically, I'm not saying blindly agree, because it's made very clear to the both parties what they're promising, but how many people don't really understand the weight of it until children actually do come along.
Well, like I said, like before, we talked about even just talking about marriage to children. And it's like, well, I get it, but until it affects me, I don't really think about it. Mm-hmm. So you don't really think about it until you actually have children. And that shouldn't be the case. You should think about it before the children arrive, before you even get married, because that is a very important factor. And you can't have the idea that we are going to, we'll go to his church. I'm going to assumption that the Catholic is a woman, is the woman, but is the wife. We'll go to his church, this Sunday, and we'll go to my church, or we'll switch because it sounds fair. No, we're not allowed to take part in non-Catholic worship. You have to be very careful with that. The only two situations which it is permissible, weddings and funerals, because of the social obligation. You go any other time, you are taking part, even if you're just sitting there and you're passive, unless you are being forced there by some other kind of obligation that, not the two that I pointed out, but something else that you might talk to your priest about. I'm not sure what it is. You have to avoid. You can't do that.
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna, kind of add there, especially when you brought up, weddings and funerals, but there are situations where a Catholic can't go to a wedding.
Well, yes.
We don't have to get into now, but I just want to put it in there that that's just, there's also other variables. And again, if you're not sure, ask your priest.
Mm-hmm. the big one there with that is if the people getting married was divorced.
Yeah, you can't go to that
Like,
wedding.
is my best friend. We went to college together. It's like, yeah, but he's divorced,
Or
and now he's
someone
getting remarried.
who is baptized Catholic has left the church and wants
Yeah.
to get married in a civil ceremony. You can't be a part of
Yeah.
that either. And that's
So, which this leads us to to another point to that with the laws of the church. Talking about, we've already got into them being married already. You've got the permissions, not going to a Protestant service or any type of service. It's not Catholic, but also when you get married, it has to be before a Catholic minister, the priest. I say the minister, primarily it's the priest, but a deacon actually is able to perform a wedding service, being a representative of the church. In situations in mission lands, it was permissible for a layman to stand in representing the bishop for a marriage. So, and why is this? I'm just going to say it, just to clear it. Remember, the two who are administering the sacrament are those who are getting married. The man and the woman administer to each other. So that's why you're able to do that. The priest is the official representative, the official witness, and anyone else, whether it is the deacon or this lay person designated by the bishop, they are the official witness. But if you were to contract this in front of anyone else, a Protestant minister, it's not a valid marriage. If you try to do the thing, and I've seen this happen, you see it on television, watch these TV shows, that we can't decide, whose faith we can get married by. So I'm a Jew, you're a Buddhist, so we're gonna have the rabbi and then the Buddhist monk both do the ceremony. No. So with that said, you don't go get your Catholic ceremony in front of the priest and then you go get yourself married in front of a Protestant minister.
right.
Nope, doesn't work like that.
No.
It's that's taking part in a Protestant service, isn't it?
Yes. And then it does say also a priest and two witnesses. Do the two witnesses need to be Catholic?
Yeah. No.
Yeah, I know that's the answer.
Two witnesses don't have to be Catholic. They don't have to be one of each gender. Usually, it's the best man and the bride and the maid of honor. But they don't have to be. It is interesting. Ideally, you'd want that, but another thing. The spiritual affinity. I'm sorry, not affinity. Yeah. Well, there's the relationship by marriage. Like the survivor cannot marry blood relations of the dead spouse. Now, this can be. There may be a dispensation, like it explains here, in the collateral line. The impediment extends to the second degree. There may be a dispensation, like a direct line, as a stepdaughter or a mother-in-law. No dispensation is granted, so you can't marry your stepdaughter. You can't marry your mother-in-law, but the sister.
Right. In the case of Henry VIII, he
Yeah,
married his brother's widow.
Yes, Catherine of Aragon, and he needed dispensation from
he
the
got
church,
dispensation for that.
which of course was the argument he tried to use to get out of it. Says the church had no authority to grant it. It's like, well, all right, then why did you go to the church in the first place?
Right.
So I mean that, but generally speaking, unless there's a dispensation, you can't just say, well, my brother died in war, and now I'm going to marry my sister-in-law and raise the children with her. No, I mean, that could be
Okay. See, the thing is, when you're telling that story, when you said I'm thinking female, right? So
oh,
and I'm like, wait, how does that work?
I'm a man doing
Yes.
that.
Okay.
So
Yes. Gotcha.
I'm speaking behalf of my gender.
There.
No,
It just took me a minute. Sorry.
no, I obviously you would look at it that way, wouldn't you? Because you're a woman.
I am
And you are a woman. Otherwise, you couldn't be a sister, now could you?
correct.
Um, but it could be a situation where it makes sense to allow it, and you'd have to go. I don't know. I think you might have to go to Rome for that. Ordinary might be able to do that. And I bring that up. I can't go into all of it, but in church law, there's certain things that the bishop is able to do on his own, but they are certain dispensations that are reserved for the apostolic see. That's all I really need to
Yeah.
say.
And it's just interesting when you kind of bring up those scenarios, like we in our culture today, it's like, why would that even be on the table? And it probably won't be, but you go back a few hundred years,
Mhm.
those were things, because it might be more
I,
politically correct to
I,
do it.
I,
It's advantageous, you know.
well, it was kind of in the Mosaic law. It was actually kind of it was part of your duty. If your brother was to die and you were single, you would marry the widow, and you would take we would say adopt the children, and they would be legally considered your children, not your brothers, but your children, and as a way to order to ensure uh, the legal standing of the children, especially, and in fact, them being raised uh, in a proper family setting. I remember years ago when I was a teenager and I was watching the movie The Patriot, the Mel Gibson film, and I was watching it with Bishop Giles, Father Giles at the time, and this was
This is
this was
way back many years
yeah,
ago.
this was
Okay.
yeah, and we were watching it, and in that movie, his Mel Gibson's character, his wife is dead, and he's raising his children, and his sister-in-law helps, and you see there's a romantic relationship blossoming between the two. And I'm sitting there going, and Bishop Giles is just like, can't do that. Says you can't do that. Like, what do you mean? He says he can't. No, that's his sister-in-law. He can't marry her. I'm like, really? Now he didn't get into the you need a dispensation part. You talk about generally speaking, you can't just go ahead and do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh well, I just learned something.
The more you know.
The more you grow. So you see that how important it is to ask the questions. Now, most people are not going to say, "Hey, I want to marry my brother. I want to marry my sister." And I'm sorry, you can't do that. It's really not going to happen here. I can't. Usually, we live in such a crazy world. Um, these things could be proposed. There are people who marry themselves.
Oh, I did see something like that online not that long ago. Very bizarre.
I had a wedding with myself. I'm like, what? It's like do you realize what you're doing? It's a mockery
Mm-hmm.
of the sacrament of matrimony.
That's the point. That's the point.
I'm gonna marry my Keurig because I love my Keurig. Makes me coffee. So I married my Keurig. It's an inanimate object. Yeah, but I love my Keurig. My Keurig loves me. It always gives me a hot cup of coffee. But what if it breaks down? Well, then the marriage is ended, and I will contract a marriage with a new Keurig. Okay. Do you get the tax breaks? Oh, sure, I do. I had to give my Keurig a first name, Karen, or Kevin, if I feel like it. I realize that I just spent the last 20 some seconds doing sounds insane,
Mm-hmm.
but there are people out there
Mm-hmm.
who think that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're just explaining basic church law that's been around in this way. Really, we know since the Council of Trent,
Mm-hmm.
but it's always been there. Sorry, mate. Making weird noise.
I could
Headset.
hear it. Yeah.
Yeah. Stop it. Come on. Anyway, so it's just, I just can't believe it. But when it comes to these things, you just have to ask the questions, is there any issue that could prevent our just getting married, just contracting marriage, no problems, nothing that, no impediments. And that's the term, impediments. You don't know unless you ask the question. Don't get upset because people bring these things up. But I love this person. Well, in this case, he's like, well, love has nothing to do with it in this.
Right.
When it comes to the law, it's cold. It's exact.
Well, because it's about the long term
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
It's not just about in that moment. Yes, you're definitely having all the feelings and it's wonderful, but the church is also looking out for the future of this union.
True.
And
well, that goes a lot into the character of a person. If you're confronting, or if you are presented with a situation where, like, the man is obviously a bigot, a wife beater, anything of this nature. Even if it's an abusive relationship, even if it's a verbally abusive relationship, you would not want to bless this union if you can keep them from making a mistake. And that's
right.
That's the one thing that you want to know the person you're marrying and realizing that you're marrying their family as well. So, you just got to do your part. And the part of Catholics, and even if you're both Catholic, make sure everything is good. Make sure you have the proper permissions. Make sure that the proper dispensations. Make sure that you're following church law, because as a Catholic, you are bound to follow the church law. And these laws are put in place, as any law should be put in place, for the temporal, and in here, the spiritual welfare of all citizens. And citizens here, we're talking about Catholics, potential citizens of the kingdom of heaven. That's what we're looking for. That's what we're striving towards. This is a vocation that God has set aside to occupy heaven with saints. And it is one that we should, if we're drawn to it, be eager to take part into it, to take on all of the responsibilities with a certain amount of, well, not a certain amount because it always varies, but the faith, a certain faith, with a strong hope, but also united with love, because love is the bond of perfection. And if we love God, we want to follow his laws and laws of Holy Church, because God is first in our lives. It must be first. So when it comes to following this law, just ask the question. And then to say with our Lord, thy will be done. So anything, sister, that I feel that we're coming to a natural close of today's episode. And I'm really happy that we did it. And yay. And I'm impressed with us both, because we came into this recording both yawning our heads off.
Mhm.
And apparently it's been engaging for both of us.
Well, it helps to pray beforehand. So
That's true.
we
Come-
pray every time before we start because
We do.
the Holy Ghost provides. That's all I have to say.
The Holy Ghost provides. So, baby, I shouldn't be pleased and proud of us.
No, it's all by God's.
To thank the Holy Ghost,
Yes.
and that he leads and inspires every episode of this program, of this podcast,
Mhm.
but also that we trust in the Holy Ghost, that he will lead us on the right path of vocation,
Mhm.
and the vocation is marriage. Lead us to the right person who will help us to do what? To become saints and to save our souls. And with that, Deo gratias.
Deo gratias.